Welcome to the President's Fall Address, the first fall address for the 9th President of Sacramento State, Dr. Luke Wood. We will begin by sharing our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge with respect the land our campus is on today was and continues to be the homelands of the indigenous people of this area, the Nishnawbe, the Nisnan, and the Miwok. The larger Sacramento area and its rivers serve as a gathering place for many local tribes from the surrounding valley and foothills, including the southern Maidu, Patwin, and Mintoon. We recognize these lands and riverways as unceded traditional territories of these Native peoples. We further recognize these California Native nations and respect their sovereignty. By providing this land acknowledgement, we affirm a commitment to build relationships and foster a healthy university environment of success to better serve Native nations and communities. And now, it is my honor to introduce Mary A. Daniels Tarango, Miwok Tribal Elder, Emeritus Tribal Chairwoman Wilton Ranchero, who will provide a blessing song.
Kujikalupa, Kujihayama, Majishituka, Kujiateka Pak McCoy. Good morning to all of you today. It's a wonderful day, right? Kuji. And a wonderful reason why we're here today for this wonderful ceremony. Kanio Yatsit Mary Tarango, Kanila Kustu Wilton Rancheria, Tribal Elder. And it is my honor to be here today to start off in such a good way in offering a prayer, not only for President Wood, but for everyone that's here who's going to make this community strong, beautiful, and serving to all. So with that, Lelichu, one above, Creator, Lord, however we call upon you today, we thank you for allowing us to rise, to open our eyes to that beautiful morning. We thank you for that first breath. We thank you for our families, Creator, for our little ones, our in-betweens, our young'uns, and our elders. Thank you for that safe journey for everyone that made it here today, Creator, and we ask for a safe journey home. Lelichu, it is a wonderful day, and the reason why we've gathered here today, to honor and to give ourselves to that blessing and working together. Bless this young man, President Wood, and help him on that journey of helping everyone throughout the community, students, and everyone that needs to be touched in a good way of promoting education. Support him, support the people that support him, and bring it all about to a good way. Thank you for everyone that's here today, that's made it. And keep us in mind of what our duty is too, Creator, and not only promoting the education for all, not only with our minds, our voices in equity, and our hearts to embrace all, and to make that path of education a better one. We see that with President Wood. So we ask, Creator, that you raise him up and help him to do the job that he's here to do, and make sure that everyone that's here that embraces him and helps him along with that as well. Trials and tribulations, they will be, but you'll be strong enough to do this. Aho. Tangi Komotuk. What I'd like to offer right now is a prayer song. It's something that's been given to me to sing at appropriate times, and this is a very appropriate time. It's Moloku, our eagle, our winged brother. And if you think about it, think about what Moloku, what eagle means to you. Think about the wonderful, supreme bird of flight that's in the air, that hits those low hills and mountains and valleys and trials and tribulations of Moloku. But still, nonetheless, his majestic way of soaring without a hinder of thought that it's not the right thing, but it's the good thing to do, he sails and he soars high. So I want you to just go ahead and close your eyes and just feel that brush of Moloku's wing taking you up, bringing you down at times, and back up to the hills again, the mountainsides. So with that, and I do this in honor of, I'd be remiss if I didn't honor my elders and my ancestors. Bill Franklin, a great known Native man here from California, who's gone now, my dad's captain, my relation. Marie Potts, another Mountain Maidu, whom gave a lot to this community as well in California, brought this song to our dance circle. So I sing it with pride that Bill has allowed me to sing this at a good time. Again, think of Moloku picking you up, lifting you up, bringing you up from the valleys, taking you up to the mountains, and letting you do what you need to do. Oh. Hey yo and oh, hey yo and oh, hey yo and oh, and so. Wakalaka chaho, heniakio, wakalaka chaho, heniakio. Hey yo we know, hey yo we know, hey yo we know, oh and it's so. Wakalaka chaho, heniakio, wakalaka chaho, heniakio. Hey yo we know, hey yo we know, hey yo we know, oh and it's so. Wakalaka chaho, heniakio, wakalaka chaho, heniakio. Hey yo we know, hey yo we know, hey yo we know, oh and it's so. Wakalaka chaho, heniakio, wakalaka chaho, heniakio. Hey yo we know, hey yo we know, hey yo we know, oh and it's so. Wakalaka chaho, heniakio, wakalaka chaho, heniakio. Hey yo we know, hey yo we know, hey yo we know, oh and it's so. Wakalaka chaho, heniakio, wakalaka chaho, heniakio. Oh, Tangi Como, many blessings to you, President Woods, and the things that you come. Oh.
Thank you, Mary. That was beautiful. As you know, President Wood was made at Sac State. Before he takes the stage, here's a bit more of that story.
My name is Dr. Luke Wood, and I'm a professor who focuses on racial equity issues in education. And I've spent my life and career trying to understand what schools, colleges, and universities can better do to support the success of all students, but particularly our students of color. And I'm the president of California State University, Sacramento, Sac State. One of the most beautiful aspects of being able to be in this role is to walk campus and to engage people who I know if it wasn't for them, I would not be here to this day. Myself and my identical twin brother, we were born when our mother was in prison, and went home with the family 3 days later and were in foster care. Later, we became adopted in that home. Me and my brother were African American, and our adoptive parents are white, and we moved to a all-white town. And so growing up like that can be a challenging experience. The school environment, it wasn't always as welcoming. Sometimes we had kids who were told that they weren't allowed to be around us. And in 5th grade, I had an experience that really helped to shape me in terms of who I am today, but it wasn't a positive experience. It was a challenging experience with an educator who saw me as nothing more than a problem. She saw me as a black male foster child, me and my brother. So in that grade, my twin brother was suspended 24 times, and I was suspended 42 times by the same teacher. And I think that that would have framed my perspective of schooling had it not been for the very following year, where I won the lotto and I had one of the best teachers I've ever had, Mr. Guggenheimer, who we called Mr. G. And I think that the difference was that where another teacher saw me as a problem, he saw me as someone who had unlimited opportunity and the ability to be able to become anything that I wanted to be. And I went from seeing school as a place that I really did not enjoy and you know, frankly, I hated, to a place where I loved. And I learned to just love learning. I learned to love the classroom environment. And I would say that if it wasn't for him, I know for certain that I wouldn't be on the path that I've been on as an educator and as a professor and now as president of Sac State. Yeah, I mean, I would think that the biggest thing is to find your village. Find those individuals who you know will care about you and care about your success. I remember in my first year walking on campus and seeing a person who was approaching me, taller, dark-skinned black male, and he walked up to me out of nowhere and just said, "What's up, black man?" And I was like, huh? I was turning around looking to see, was he talking to me or talking to somebody else? And I realized he was talking to me, and he introduced himself and he says, "My name is Professor Cecil Canton. I'm a professor of criminal justice. And I want you to know that I'm here to support you. So if you ever need anything, no matter what it is, I want you to come and talk to me." I never had a single class with him ever, not once. But it didn't really matter, because what I realized from engaging him is that no matter whether you're teaching a student in your classroom or whether you're working in custodial services, no matter what role you have on campus, every single one of us is an educator, and every single one of us is responsible for the students that we serve. And I realized that that was important in reflection, because I was a student who struggled mightily with food insecurity, housing insecurity, transportation concerns, but I had an environment of people who cared about me and who cared about my success and who poured themselves into me. In reality, I never really wanted to be a president. I wanted to create change. I wanted to create opportunities for people, and if that meant being in a presidential role, then I would want to then take on that responsibility. But I also told myself that there was no place in the country that I would want to be president of unless it was Sac State. There was a connection between me and the work that I had always told myself I wanted to do and what I believe my purpose is in life. And now I have the privilege of serving as the president of Sacramento State, my alma mater, and being able to finish the work that we began as student leaders many years ago. I'm Dr. Luke Wood, and I was made at Sac State.
I almost cried. Like many of our students, President Wood encountered incredible obstacles while he was a student at Sacramento State. But when you listen to him speak about that time, he describes a community of faculty and staff who worked so hard to support him. He also describes the values and lessons he learned from his time as a student. Those challenges inspired his life work. He is the author of over 200 publications, including 16 books and 80 peer-reviewed journal articles. He then went on to earn his PhD in only 2.5 years, graduating from his doctoral program with peer-reviewed research and a published academic book. In 2011, he joined the faculty at San Diego State University and went on to become a tenured full professor and the first Black distinguished professor in SDSU 125-year history. He is public intellectual representing the academic community of nationally televised media such as The Dr. Phil Show and hosting the public course series Black Mind Matters. Wood is a ranked professor according to the Educational Week. He is one of the top 50 scholars in the nation in the field of education and a top 10 scholar in the fields of administration, curriculum, and instruction. His research led to legislation that provided protections for foster youth from the school suspensions and changed statewide policy allowing for community college athletes to receive meals. And he has secured millions in grants from the National Science Foundation, College Futures Foundations, and many others to address issues of equity in education. In addition, he has worked to raise tens of millions of dollars in the last 3 years, focused on diversity, inclusion, and student success. So those challenges he faced and the support he received at Sacramento State has given him a passion for this work. It is now my great honor to introduce the 9th president of Sacramento State, Dr. Luke Wood.
Thank you all. So, thank you. I greatly appreciate the incredible warm welcome I've received. Thank you, where's Natalie? President Andrade Dominguez for the introduction. Good morning to you all. I'm proud to serve as the president of California State University, Sacramento, Sacramento State. And I also know that in the process that the system goes through, that it's a closed process. And so, surprise, I was selected to serve in this role. And so part of what we wanted to do with this fall address today is to have it be as much of an introduction and opportunity to get to know me and my background, whereas future ones would be more so in line with what you may be more familiar with. But I felt like that was important because the importance of being able to understand who it is that you're working with and for me to also get to know more about you. I want to acknowledge community members that we have who've come here to be in a community with us. If the members of cabinet would please stand up, and also the members of our ASI, faculty senate, and staff assembly. And a special shout out to my brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So today is a definition of a full circle moment. Sacramento State is where I spent the formative years of my adult life. I began here as a student in 2000, and I became highly involved in student leadership, being part of Associated Students Incorporated, as a board member for natural sciences and mathematics, though I did not finish in mathematics and science. Vice president for finance, academic affairs, and executive vice president. Did not serve in the presidential role because my identical twin brother was president. And that's a story for another time. But I also went on to earn my bachelor's degree from the College of Social Sciences and Interdisciplinary Studies as a special major in Black History and Politics, which was essentially a joint collection of classes from the Departments of Ethnic Studies and Government, now Political Science. And I also went on to earn my master's degree from here, from the College of Education, in higher education leadership, and that was in 2007. And while Sac State gave me 2 degrees, it also, as important, gave me a life partner, my wife, Idara. And you'll get to hear a little bit more from her later. But I want to just reiterate something that was said in the video. I would not want to be president any other place. In fact, unquestionably, being a president is a very difficult role. And so it has to be an institution that you care about and that you can be truly all in for it. And so for me, there was no other place than Sacramento State. And I will say that people oftentimes ask me, is this something that you thought might happen in the future? And my answer, surprisingly to many, is yes, of course. As a student leader, as early as 2001, I proudly told many of my fellow students and colleagues and those in student government that I planned to be the president of Sacramento State. And in truth, I've worked my entire life to try to reach this moment, not for the sake of the title, but for the sake of the impact that it could have. So you see the work that we began as student leaders many years ago. We advocated for what we thought were very real issues: public safety, wellness and leadership development through athletics, student success and educational equity for minoritized students, particularly students of color, housing and basic needs. And interestingly, each of those issues are still relevant to this day. So in my mind, I've come home for 2 primary reasons. First, to finish what we started as student leaders over 20 years ago. And second, to invest back in the community that has given so much to me, to our faculty and staff, and to our local community members, and to my fellow student peers. And I think that's important because as we move to the next phase of the work that we'll do here, I think honoring the contributions of our educators has to be central to how we think about our road and pathway towards student success. Remembering that, yes. Remembering that as an administrator, I do not have the privilege of being in the classroom. And in fact, though, I still see myself as a professor in an administrative role, but I guess not technically anymore. But it's to recognize that the people who are doing the hard work that's taken this institution from an 8.5% graduation rate in 4 years to 28.5% are our faculty and our staff. So I'm oftentimes asked, so what is it that you plan to do? And, you know, I'll get to it a little bit later, but, you know, the main and first plan is I got to be here to listen, because San Diego State, where I'm coming from, is very different than Sacramento State. And I would never make the assumption, particularly as a scholar of post-secondary education who has spent their career looking at different institutions and how there's a unique set of factors within each institution that leads to student success, faculty success, and staff success, I would never assume that what worked there would translate here. That being said, there are some commitments that are central to how I think about the world that I would like to share. First is that I should say not first, but the overarching, I think, theme with all of these is that they really relate to promoting student success, which is, again, why we're here, right? We want to see every student that comes through to the institution to walk across that stage. And we also recognize that there are gaps between certain students and their peers, which we refer to as equity. And so from an equity perspective, we have a heightened focus on groups that experience disproportionate impact so we can remediate disparities in their experiences and their outcomes. And I've been schooled in the perspective of what is called equity-mindedness, where you take that notion of equity and you have it change the ways in which you think about the work that you do. And according to Estella Ben-Simone, who is one of the most greatest scholars when it comes to issues of equity and equity-mindedness, she says that there's 4 primary things that we have to keep in mind to have that change the way in which we do the work that we do. The first is that we have to recognize that there are systems, that there are systems in place that have served to reify disparities for certain groups and to advance outcomes for others. And even more so, we have to recognize that an inequity in one system can serve to amplify inequities in other systems. So, for example, let's look at systems such as housing, healthcare, education, the criminal justice system. That's obviously a system. An inequity in one system serves to amplify inequities in others. So if you're either unemployed or underemployed, that has an impact on other systems, like your access to quality and effective health care. Or looking at one that I spent a lot of my career focused on, which is what is called the school-to-prison pipeline, which suggests that inequities in K-12 education, the overrepresentation of students of color, in particular in school suspensions and expulsions, and the second pillar of it being overrepresentation in special education, that those 2 things serve as the 2 pillars to what is called the school-to-prison pipeline. So the other thing that she says about this is that we have to recognize that we cannot blame students, blame their families, and blame their communities. Rather, as educators, we look into the mirror to see what it is that we're doing or not doing that's resulting in the outcome disparities that we see. That doesn't suggest that students do not have a role in their own success, but it suggests that we're more effective when we focus on what is within our own control as educators. And the last thing that she would say is that we have to critically reflect upon our own roles and recognize that we can't externalize the responsibility for student success and say, well, that's somebody else's responsibility, or that's their area and what they're supposed to be doing. Because as I mentioned in the video, every single one of us is an educator. And in fact, we think about educators as those who are in the classroom and those who are in student affairs. But from my training, I also see many of our custodial and janitorial staff and facility staff as being absolutely part of the educational process. And in fact, one of the, yes. So one of the very first studies I ever did was basically interviewing black students who were attending a community college. It was in Arizona, and I asked them, what impacts your success? And I was talking with them about in-class engagement and out-of-class engagement, and one of the things I asked them is, well, tell me about what your out-of-class engagement looks like. And they said, well, you know, when I see my faculty members or staff members outside of class, many of them don't engage me. Now, certainly some of them did, but many of them don't engage me. I said, well, what do they do when they see you? They said, well, sometimes they put their head down, they get on the phone, they walk the other direction to avoid interacting with me. Not an uncommon experience that we've heard with many of the institutions we've done research with. So then I said, well, who do you interact with outside of class? And I was expecting to hear certain groups that we would think are also providing, you know, supplementary support. And instead, what I heard was, well, you know what? The person who tells me, I'm proud of you, keep going, keep your head in the books, I'm here if you need anything. It was the janitors, the custodians, the food service workers, and the groundskeepers. So all of us here have the privilege of being educators. So what are some of the things that I think lead to student success and educational equity? Well, one of those is well-being. And as a student leader, I talked about this, and it's something that's still, I think, important, and one that can elicit very different emotions within any group, and that is supporting well-being through one mechanism as being athletics. And when I say athletics, people oftentimes think I'm referring specifically to intercollegiate sports, which certainly that's part of it. But actually, I think about it more broadly, about intramural sports, about rec sports, about club sports. And it's not because I'm an amateur boxer, which I am if you didn't know that. It's because it promotes leadership development, it promotes confidence, and the expulsion of the kind of negative energy that can lead to heightened levels of anxiety, of stress, and depression. And I'm very informed in the work that I do on racial equity by the work of William Smith, a professor from the University of Utah, who writes about what's called racial battle fatigue, and especially looking at an environment like ours where we have such a diverse environment of students, that we have to think about that there are facts that sometimes those students don't have the experiences that they need to have. Sometimes there are biases and microaggressions and subtle slights that can create an environment where some students do not feel that they are cared about and valued. I was fortunate that I had many people who were part of my village who made me feel cared about and valued, but that doesn't mean that every experience was a positive experience. And so what William Smith tells us is that essentially when you're in environments where there's subtle and ongoing issues with this, which any normal environment would have this, that basically impacts you in three ways. First, cognitively, your ability to process information, retain information, your attentional control. So imagine how that would impact you in the classroom. The second is it impacts you in terms of psychologically. So anxiety, worrying, anger suppression, resentment. But then the third piece, and this is really why I think about this as one of the components of student success, is the research also shows that it impacts you physiologically, physically. Tension headaches, backaches, elevated heartbeat, upset stomach. Some of you, even as educators of color or educators from minoritized groups, may find that you clench your jaws at night or you have trouble sleeping. Those can be symptoms and outcomes of what is called racial battle fatigue, and so I see that as one mechanism for doing that. The second thing that I see is important is supporting research and supporting the research enterprise as a strategy for student success. And I was very fortunate that I benefited from research experiences here from educators who, many of them are still here at this institution, particularly Dr. William, somewhere, there you are. Dr. Navarez, our provost, and Dr. Caroline Turner, who's watching virtually. And the research shows that in terms of student success, that engagement in research is a high impact practice that can impact students in a number of different ways. It can increase their self-efficacy, essentially their confidence in their academic abilities, their perceptions of the usefulness of college, which we call degree utility, their feelings of control over their academic futures, the locus of control in an academic context, their authentic interest in what they're learning, their intrinsic interest, and their attentional focus in the work that they do, action control. And so because of the importance of this, we have been in conversations, and UEI is under the leadership now of John Malikian, and is going to be addressing sponsored programs to ensure that the necessary supports for faculty members are there in terms of research funding. But we're also proud to announce that I've been working closely with the provost and vice president for finance, and we're announcing today that we will be releasing $1 million worth of research assigned time for faculty members, of which up to 3 units can be for general research assigned time, of up to which 6 units can be available if you're doing research that engages students, because we see research as a strategy for student success. And there's not a huge bank here on campus, so we had to work really hard to be able to find those dollars. I also mentioned that when we think about student success, that we think about housing and basic needs. So ensuring that every student at the bare minimum knows where they're going to lay their head at night and where they're going to get their next meal from. And there's lots of different types of what the research says are insecurities, instabilities, and general needs. Food insecurity is a challenge, housing insecurity, transportation concerns, employment barriers. There's many others, and what the research shows is that not just those things in isolation, but the confluence of those factors that actually have the most deleterious effect on success. And we know that if you're not in an environment where your basic needs are met, it's hard for you to focus. For example, when I was a student, I used to struggle with food insecurity. Sometimes I go 2, sometimes 3 days at a time without being able to eat.
and would scrounge up change off the ground and go to the Taco Bell that's nearby here and get a bean burrito to hold myself over because I was hungry. And there was times that I simply didn't go to class because I couldn't sit in class because I was hungry. There was times where I struggled with housing insecurity, living in my car, living in my brother's garage, my older brother's garage. My twin brother, when he was student body president here, lived in his office because he was unhoused. And when I see the students and talk to the students to this day, I see that those are still issues that are relevant here. And it's important for us to ensure that we provide our students with the very best support they can, and that involves addressing housing and food insecurity. And one mechanism to do that is to increase the residential living opportunities for our students, which, looking at our data, will have an impact on our graduation rates, because students will be able to be in an environment where they can count on those things. They'll be able to take higher quality course loads, because we know more units you take, the more degree progress you have. And then ultimately, it's a way for us to deliver academic advising, tutoring, supplemental instruction, and other basic supports that are critical to their academic needs as well. And then the last thing, I would mention is campus security. And again, that's something I began with because it's something that has always been an issue at most colleges and universities, but certainly at Sacramento State. Many of you may have seen the video that we released announcing that we would be forming a presidential task force on campus safety. And the task force will bring together our student leaders, faculty leaders, staff leaders, experts, to come together and to think through as a campus and as a community, what do we need to do to enhance security and safety on campus. But I also said in that video that establishing a task force or releasing a statement of support or a committee or forming or doing a study, those aren't actions, those are plans for future action. And because those are really plans for future action, we felt like it was important to move forward with some very critical things. First, having more digital monitors on campus so that we can communicate in the event of emergency in a timely way. Yes, we get emails. Yes, we can use the emergency notification system for text messages, but it's also important for people to be able to just see as they're walking the environment, hey, something's going on, I need to be aware. To increase the number of our community service specialists who are working with public safety, doubling the number of them so that we have visible presence in key places on campus, particularly in our residence halls, and hiring 7 more therapists to reach our 1 to 1,500 ratio. So despite the fact that there's some things that, as a researcher, I know are core to student success, as I mentioned before, I have to listen. And as a good researcher, I actually enjoy listening. So I'm proud to announce that beginning tomorrow, we will begin 100 days of listening, where we will go to our students, our faculty, our staff, our alumni, folks in industry, and hear from them. We'll also be very targeted in addressing micro-communities that are also in need of having a set-alone set of conversations. That can include our new staff, our new faculty, those who are associate professors, our faculty of color, our staff of color, and our deaf community. In addition to that, as part of this, we're going to be asking some very simple questions, and I encourage you all to start thinking about these now. What is it that makes us distinctive? I know what that means for me, but it may be something that's very different for you. Where do we want to be 5 years from now? And what are the tangible steps that we need to take to get there? And in doing all of that, how do we embrace Jedi principles? And I don't just say that because I'm Luke. Justice, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I know our Vice President for Inclusive Excellence might also say, and belonging. So as we embark upon the next stage of our journey, we have to commit to ourselves to doing those things. First, to having hope, to listening as part of the listening session, to planning, and then ultimately to acting. We have to have hope for a better future for ourselves and for our students and for our Sacramento State, because the institution belongs to all of us, our students, our faculty, our staff, to our community. But hope without understanding is aimless. So we have to listen. We have to listen to those who have experienced pain and harm within the institution, as well as those who experience joy. But listening is not enough, because you can listen, but where there is no plan, the people perish. So we have to plan. We have to have intentional strategies that are going to help us get to that next point, so that we can be confident that every single one of the students who enters into this institution has the opportunity to succeed and walk across the stage. And we also have to think about, how do we create success for our faculty and for our staff in doing so? But lots of people have plans. And a plan without action is simply a false promise. So we ultimately have to act. Regardless of the goals, we have to believe that we can accomplish them, and there are many things that I have heard from people within the community that they want to see done. And ultimately, I look across the country and I see other colleges and universities that have done some of the things, the very things that people have brought to me, and I say that we should be no different. Mere mortals have done this before, and so can we. And so it's with that mindset that we must engage and create the best possible Sacramento State for our future. So, stingers up. So now what I'd like to do is to invite my significantly better half, Dr. Idara Essien, to come and join me on the stage, and also recognize my family who has joined me. And so what we thought we would do as part of getting to know us a little bit better is we would ask the community if there was questions, and there was lots of questions that were submitted. And we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we went in and picked some ones that were tough ones. We also picked some ones that were fun. So let's see and go to that next set. So.
He would ask questions that no one would ever ask, right? And he would just really try to find out more about people in general, more about me, and I just found that to be like the most amazing quality, you know. And
you've been stuck with me ever since.
I know.
So I was in the nest with my friend Gregory Dossi. We saw Idara, and we were immediately like taken back with how beautiful she was. I said to Greg, I was like, hey, do you know who she is? And he says, no. He said, do you know who she is? And I said, no, but I'm gonna marry that girl. I got up, I walked over, and I introduced myself, and I basically asked if I could walk her to class. I walked her to class, and we have been together ever since, and on October 27th will be 20 years.
He would ask me questions about like, what was my favorite cereal? And a few months later, I was actually working on his computer, and I found a Word document saved with all my favorite things. So it was like favorite cereal, Apple Jacks, favorite ice cream, rainbow sherbet. So all these favorites. Favorite movie, yeah.
Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka. Yeah, so those things were, you know, some things that stood out to me and were so special, so.
I loved her intelligence. I was attracted to her, but I was even more so attracted to her mind. And even when I met her, she was in the eatery. I was there with my friend. We were having a good time and sharing time together. She was studying. She was focused, and it was that just really drew me to her, because she was different to me, and in the most beautiful and amazing ways.
He knew what he wanted in life. And there were a couple things that he would say, and I remember, and he would say this across campus, it wasn't just for me, it was for other students as well, that his goal was to be president of Sacramento State, and that was 20 years ago.
It was a transformative experience, and one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, in addition to, of course, marrying this beautiful, intelligent, amazing woman.
I'm sure my kids are cringing right now.
All right, well, good morning. Good morning. All right, so thank you to all the people who took time to submit questions for this interview. The questions we chose are representative of themes we saw in nearly 100 questions submitted. We did not change the wording of the final questions you'll hear today. Are you nervous?
Should I be?
Yes. No,
Yes?
no,
Okay.
no, you're fine.
Yes.
All right, so let's get to our first question. Sac State is a dual designated NAPZ and HSI. What do these designations mean to you as Sac State's president?
Well, it's one of the reasons that I wanted to be here. So federal designations, HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution, and ANAPZ, Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander Serving Institution. And within that, our PETA community, we have a large representation from our Filipinx community and from our Southeast Asian community, Hmong, Cambodian, Laotian, Vietnamese. And as mentioned, I'm coming from San Diego State, who happens to be another institution within our system that has both of those designations as well. And so for me, it's core to the way that I think about the world, because I care about diversity and inclusion as a driver of innovation and excellence. And really it comes, I think, from my upbringing. So as was mentioned, I was born while my mother was in prison, biological mother, I should say, and was raised in a home that was a foster home, later adopted in that home, but there was my mother, who's here, had over 300 children in the home throughout her time doing foster. And we're all from very different backgrounds. So there's about, I don't know, like when you got that many, you just like think of yourselves in like cohorts. So in my cohort, there's like 14 of us. And, you know, we're Black, white, Pacific Islander, Latina. I have a sister who is in a wheelchair. I have one with a cognitive impairment. We are literally very diverse. And when we moved to far northern California to a very homogenous town, they used to call us the UN because we walked in, they're like, where did all this come from? It's like, so we brought a lot of spice, we brought a lot of flavor, and ultimately, when I see people from diverse communities, I guess I think because of my upbringing, I have a different perspective. I don't just see them as, oh, that's someone who's different from me. I see that as my sister. I see that as my brother. I see that as my cousin, because that's how I was raised. So.
The new Sac State strategic plan barely mentions faculty research and scholarly activity. However, there is a plan to recategorize Sac State as an R2 research intensive university. How can we support faculty given the different visions? What is your vision for research and centers at CSUS?
Oh gosh, tough one. So Provost Navarez, do you want to answer this? No, okay. So actually, I want to clarify something that's part of that question. Sac State is not seeking to become a research institution. The process looks different. So what happens is that the Carnegie Foundation, they basically do an assessment every several years based upon data of what the campus has done. It's based upon NSF, HERD data, NSF postdoc data, and IPEDS data. And essentially, it looks at a formula of total number of faculty members who are doing research, total number of research dollars coming in, and total number of doctoral students who are graduating and earning terminal degrees. And so it's a formula that's based upon what you do as an institution. So Sac State, either in this cycle or the next cycle, doing nothing else than what it's already doing is going to be reclassified, not because someone is seeking to do it, but because that's actually the good work that folks here have already done. And so I think that's important, but I also think that, okay, so now we become an R2, what does that mean? And I think that that has to be part of the conversations in the listening session, because there's lots of different ways to be a research institution. You can be a research institution that never has people who are on the faculty teaching students in the class. You can have research that doesn't engage students. You can have people who are totally disconnected from their communities. Or you can have a model where you embrace opportunities for student-involved research, where you embrace the designations of being an HSI and an ANAPESI as a part of the pathway to doing so, where you have faculty members make choices on, hey, I want to spend my time doing this, or maybe that's not what I find the fulfillment in terms of what my career is. And so I think that it really isn't for me to decide, it's really for the faculty to decide, and then to help tell me what we should be doing and what we should be advocating for. But that's also one of the reasons that we wanted to address, you know, some of the historical challenges with sponsored programs, and also provide more research assigned time, but not just research assigned time for the sake of research, again, for research that engages students because it's a pathway to student success. That's a different model than you see at many institutions. So I think that there's more to come, and that more to come is really based upon what I hear, what I learn from, and my listening with the community. Am I giving, are my responses too long? I'm a professor, so I can talk.
No, they're great. And this is a great question here. What are your favorite sneakers? And what will be your next kicks to purchase?
Okay, as right as I put my leg up. Okay, my favorite sneakers. Well, I have lots of favorite sneakers. And essentially, these ones are pretty cool. These are my Adidas Hornet ones, but I wear a lot of Nikes, and essentially, it's really just a way to express yourself. I think about it like this: President Nelson had cowboy boots, I can have my sneakers, right? And I'd say that the next pair of kicks I'm going to purchase are probably going to be from the Candyman, because he does a lot of the ones I really love. So yeah.
Okay. There were quite a few fun questions, so I need you to answer these questions pretty quickly.
Okay.
10 seconds or less.
Oh gosh.
Okay. You ready?
I'm loquacious, so.
Okay, first one. Who is your favorite UFC champion?
Ooh, Uriah Faber. Yeah. That's the easy one. There was one of the fights that he did. Wait.
10 seconds.
I'll just say, both hands were broken and he was still fighting. I mean, so, and he's like 2 blocks away.
Do you have any pets?
Yes, we have.
Yes.
The kids. No, not the kids. The kids aren't the pets. I meant that we all collectively have a dog named Nella, yes. And she's a Chiweenie, so she's really adorable, actually.
All right. Ari has something to say.
My daughter is yelling at me right now.
All right. Okay. So now that you are back in town, this is a great question. Do you think your brother needs to get another haircut so we can tell you two apart?
Yes.
Yeah.
My twins got the same cut. I used to wear the afro to make it look different, but it was too hot. So,
Right, here's a good one. What have you liked about Sac State so far?
oh gosh, the warm welcome. So first of all, the community has just made me and my family feel so welcome. I mean, welcome to be home, right? And it's really felt like that. I mean, y'all put banners out in the front and then did signs, and like every office I went to, I feel like I've gone to a parade. It's been it's been amazing, and I think and I assume that it's because it's not often in the CSU that a alum of an institution becomes a president. It's very uncommon. So hopefully you all know how much that means to me personally, and what I hope it means for our students, that it can be a message that whatever they want to be, they can be. So.
Great job, okay. So now we're moving to our next set. How will you work with the bargaining unions of our CSU faculty and staff to promote their rights and working conditions with the possibility of a huge statewide strike this year?
That's a great question. So let me just say this. I am a strong advocate and proponent of represented labor. And so how I will work is based upon the ways that I was taught through my exposure to being part of a represented union. But even more so, most people don't know, one of my very first jobs was working for the California Faculty Association as an intern, organizing direct action on campus and at the Capitol, and learning directly from union leaders like Dr. Canton and others. And so that has strongly influenced the ways in which I think about the importance of properly compensating our employees and the importance of dignity in the workplace. And then, yeah. And then after I was done being a CFA intern, I basically got a job working for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, one of the largest public employee unions in the state, working across the street from the Capitol for Willie Pelot, and essentially heading a team as essentially a legislative lead for policy statewide. And then after that, I worked for a short period of time for SEIU and ACORN, and then went off to my doctoral program, and then have been part of the California Faculty Association as a faculty member for many years, and then had the pleasure of working and having academic labor relations report to me for a short time while I was at San Diego State. And really just from those exchanges and from those engagements, I think that it is just really important to have open, transparent conversations, and to believe that, again, people need to be in an environment where they are properly compensated and that they have dignity in the workplace. So.
How will you advocate for our low-income CSU students who oppose the multi-year tuition increase proposal?
Gosh, you're just bringing them. Okay. Well, you know, I think about my own experience in being a student leader, and I think about what I would want. And I think that the most important thing that we can do is recognize that, you know, a tuition increase is tough. And so, you know, that is a conversation just like the labor conversation that don't happen at the campus level. Those conversations happen at the statewide level. But I do think that there's things that we can do on the local level. So one of those comes down to having a commitment to philanthropy that raises dollars for scholarships for students. And I would say that I fortunately have a pretty strong track record of doing that, given my time at San Diego State. In the last 3 years, me and my team, Jen Stanley, we raised over $30 million for students. And that was within a single division, not what I hope to be able to accomplish at a larger campus level. And so I think that that's one of the things we need to do. But the other thing we have to consider is you can raise dollars for scholarships, but that doesn't mean that those scholarships reach students. And so there's a point to be made here that, and this happened at my prior institution as well, we found that our scholarship utilization rate was really low, meaning that we had dollars that were coming in that were sitting on campus that we could not give to students. And there's various reasons. Sometimes it was issues of processes that were in place. Sometimes it was issues of criteria, because when donors give money for scholarships for students, they love to give money for someone who's just like them, right? So I'm gonna give money, and we're gonna create a scholarship for a student who's from Siskiyou County, who's an art major, who has a 3.2 GPA, and who is also a guitar player. I mean, right? And then you've got all these different criteria, and then it makes it hard to be able to give those dollars to students. And so one of the things that we've looked at here already is that we, on our campus, also have a low scholarship utilization rate. And that's an opportunity. That's something that's really, really an opportunity for us. And so I have talked with our interim vice president for engagement and enrollment, enrollment engagement. Sorry, that was backwards. And we're going to be yes, thanks. and we're going to be focused on that. That's got to be a goal for us to get that scholarship utilization rate up to somewhere around 95%, so that when we have dollars here, that we're actually translating those dollars to students, because as tuition goes up, need for more resources will continue to go up. Now, fortunately, we have about a 60% scholarship utilization rate right now. We should be closer to 95%. That's an opportunity. And so that's, I think, one of those low-hanging fruits that we can do to help alleviate the burden for our students.
Yes. It is exciting that both you and your wife were made at Sac State.
Hey.
Hey. I worked with her when we co-taught a course in child development when she taught for Sac State. Will she teach at Sac State? How do you envision her role on the Sac State campus, if any?
So I've been able to stay married for 16 years by not answering questions for my wife. So would you like to respond to that?
I can, yes. Yes, so yeah, this is a great question. I started off as a grad student, and we graduated in 2007 together from Sac State. And then I came back to work with the faculty, and I had worked with them in San Diego at the satellite campus, and it was the most amazing opportunity. Had I not had that experience, I wouldn't have landed a tenure track position at San Diego State University. I'm very grateful for working with the College of Education professors, them seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself as a grad student, but also as a faculty member. And I'm very authentic when I talk about my experience with being a woman of color, with being a Black woman. And in academia, it's not the easiest, right? My journey is very unique, very different, where you have a spouse who works in the same system at the same campus in leadership, so you have to navigate in different ways to, work through the tenure track position. And I was able to do that, and I ended up getting tenure a few months ago at San Diego State. Thank you. And those experiences that I had at Sacramento State is the reason why I was able to do that in about 4 years. And I started off as a visiting assistant professor. I won't be too wordy, but I do want to say I started off where I had 9 classes. I had 9 preps. my first year. And after that, I ended up teaching over 33 classes. I taught over 1,500 students. I invested in the students that I worked with. And I was able to do all of that while maintaining a 4.75 on my teaching evaluations. So I talk about how my experience at San Diego State to say that I invested in in my department and in my students a lot. And I do see myself continuing on the work at San Diego State at this moment. I don't think my calling is right now is to move, but I am in full support of working here on this campus. And when I go back to San Diego, and I teach full-time there, I do go back, and I am representing Sac State as well. But at this very moment, I don't know what my plans are in the future if an opportunity does arise, and I go wherever I'm needed, I will be there. So at this very moment, I am supporting Luke, I'm supporting the campus, I'm supporting the community of Sacramento State. I'm also serving full-time at San Diego State as a professor, and I'm a mom, so I wear multiple hats. So, yes. So the second part to that question, which I did answer about my envisioning my role at Sacramento State, is just to continue to support you all and support the students, and for them to see me as the students see me at San Diego State as well. And I hope that I get to meet each and every one of you at events, so I will be there. Okay, all right. Okay, next question. What was the best experience you had in college?
Oh gosh, meeting you. I'm gonna stop right there. Yeah, I'm definitely sure.
Okay. What is one thing that you learned while you were a student here, and how do you practice that to this day?
Ooh, there's lots of things I learned as a student here. I learned good things and bad things, and I don't mean that. I mean that I've always believed that both the good experiences and the bad experiences in your life perfectly prepare you for what you have coming next. And so, I've talked about, obviously, the lessons I learned from food insecurity and housing insecurity and how that impacts student success. But if I was to go to a memorable, good experience here, gosh, I think that I would say, well, one of them was, obviously meeting Dr. Canton. One of them was getting to work with Provost Navarez and writing as a master's student, being able to write a peer-reviewed journal article and co-author it, and to go on and do I think we've done 4 books together. It was being part of the Graduate Education Student Association, GESA, with Dr. William and Dr. Lozano. It was being in EOP, the Educational Opportunity Program, My Heart and My Home. It was being a Cooper Woodson Scholar. It was living in Jenkins Hall. It was arguing with my brother. There's so many memorable experiences, and I think that all of those experiences, again, the good and the bad, perfectly prepared me for the next stage in my life and have prepared me for this moment.
Welcome, President Wood, to our City of Trees. We welcome you with open arms, but also with questions. For the past 3 years of being a student, I've heard words but no actions. What do you plan to take action with first to make this campus safe for our women and people of color?
That's a great question. Again, campus safety is something that I'm very concerned about, and one of the first things that we wanted to lead off with is with the support of the incredible leadership team that we have here. So we announced that, of course, as I mentioned, the presidential task force, moving forward with the digital monitors, moving forward with hiring more therapists, which is desperately needed, and also with more community service specialists. And then, of course, we also have coming to us from the state level, the COSN report, and the real need to re-envision the ways in which we engage in the work around Title IX. And so there is a implementation team that will be working to address those issues, and we are also looking at establishing in a different body that can also provide some additional insight into that area of concern. And it's one where campus safety overall is absolutely essential to student success. As I said in the video, you cannot learn, grow, develop, and be successful in an environment where you do not feel physical safety, cognitive safety, and other types of safety that are absolutely essential to being able to thrive in an environment. And so I just want to say that it is my commitment, it is my priority, it is not something that is on the back burner. And anybody who knows me knows that I don't make bombastic declarations without the ability to be able to follow through on it. And I mean that really coming from my time at San Diego State. Basically, one of the commitments I have is I will never release a statement, and this is something I will say to the Sacramento State community as well. I will never release a statement unless there's going to be action that goes along with it, because a statement without action is a false promise.
All right, last question. What are you most excited for in this new role?
What am I most excited for? Gosh. So I'm excited to engage the community. And I'm excited because Sacramento is home to me. It's where my family, my mother, my brother, my sister, like my family lives, right? Sacramento State is my home. It's where I spent the formative years of my life. I had a really just kind of just a wonderful experience yesterday. We had move-in yesterday. We got to move in Samuel's here, and all the incredible work that took place to coordinate that. My goodness. And all these wonderful students coming in, moving into the residence halls, and I got to go to Jenkins Hall. And I got to go to the room where I stayed when I was a student, and I got to meet the two students who are staying in that room. And I got to tell them, I hope your transcript looks better than mine did. I didn't tell them that part. But really, it's being able to engage the community, to listen and to hear, and to be on this beautiful 305-acre park-like environment, and to know that Sacramento State did so much for me and invested in me, and now I have the privilege and the honor to invest back in it. So thank you. You all are very kind. So there is a reception that is taking place up in the Cottonwood Suite. So we hope to see you there and just have the time for all of us to engage in seeing one another in community and welcoming everyone back. So see you all there. Thank you.